tonight, cheering up the nation, the new role that happiness is playing in British politics.
This is just the start. I think in a decade's time, we're going to be using happiness as the sole basis for judging the impact of public policy.
But what's the secret to becoming happier?
I don't have a single moment of regret about having lost the big house and the nice car and the five-star holidays, because what's replaced it is so much more fulfilling.
Good evening and welcome to the Tonight programme. How happy are you? The government believes the answer to that question can give us an indicator of how successful we are as a nation. But does a contented population mean a more productive one? Jonathan Maitland takes a look at the science of happiness and asks, is Britain happy?
People of Britain, David Cameron is on a mission to make us all happier. Over the years, he's had some strong words on what he believes should be a key goal for government.
We have to remember what makes people happy, as well as what makes stock markets rise. Prosperity alone can't deliver a better life. You can't legislate for fulfilment or satisfaction. But I do believe that government has the power to help improve well-being.
Improving the mood of a nation may be an admirable ambition, but is it a realistic one? After all, happiness means different things to different people.
Happiness from a psychological perspective, I guess, is a sense of well-being. It may range from just basic contentedness to just feeling overjoyed, a sense that things aren't only all right now, but that you're okay, the situation's okay, that the future's okay, that you like who you are and where you are. I guess that's happiness.
So, not an easy thing to measure, but the government launched its first so-called happiness index in 2010. The latest results are in, and the good news is that we're getting happier. 73.3% of people give themselves a high happiness rating, up from 71.6% last year. Women are happier than men, and people between 65 and 74 score the highest. But can our contentment really be boiled down to marks out of 10? We gathered a group of strangers together, and unsurprisingly, they all had very different ideas about happiness.
My family make me happy, and my friends, and my social life, and my work.
I think part of being happy is enjoying what you do every day, from the mundane jobs to the bigger jobs as well.
One of the things, obviously, is being successful in my work and business life. That's hugely important.
Having an absolutely ideal job, and maybe enough money to go on a really super holiday.
What would make me happier in life? To fulfil a dream of owning my own Aston Martin.
It's often thought that more money in the bank will make us happy, and that's true, but up to a point. Psychologists have found the happiest salary is actually £45,000 a year. But earning more won't make you happier. In fact, what really makes a difference is your wealth compared to that of the people around you. To put that theory to the test, we set up a Tonight laboratory to run our volunteers through a series of social experiments. Working together in pairs, they were asked to carry out a simple sorting task.
Oh no, 6 and 9s are mixed up.
Oh no.
Then our happiness expert gave them an unexpected reward.
Would you like to open it out?
The first person was given £10.
£10, thank you very much, that's very kind.
Woo! The second, 20.
I knew that was going to happen.
I'm upset now. I'm upset now. Why does he get more than me? So when I got the £10, I was really, really excited. And then when Johan got £20, I was just crushed in a moment, just like that. We worked together on the same thing. That's not fair. That was strange. I was brought from a high to a low really quickly.
I'm still grateful for my 10, but I can't help feeling it's slightly unbalanced, a little unfair, and therefore I'd like to know why. I'd like to know why.
We actually care about this comparison because we're looking over the fence, we're comparing ourselves with our neighbours, and we're thinking about, you know, how we're doing in the social pecking order rather than just seeing that reward for what it's worth.
So, whilst money can buy some happiness, it doesn't quite have the impact you might expect. And that was certainly the case for gardener Tom Mitchell, who spent 14 years as a banker. He may have earned a fortune, but it's a profession that recently came bottom of the league tables ranking job happiness.
By the end, I was utterly miserable. I would go for days without seeing natural daylight. I'd be commuting in the dark at 5 o'clock in the morning, working in an open plan office 100 metres from the nearest window, and leaving when it was dark again.
Even though you were unhappy in your job as a junk bond salesman, you were, I presume, earning a humongous amount of money. Didn't that act as a corrective to the unhappiness?
Well, it's an illusion, isn't it, that money makes you happy? I certainly found all that having more money did is raise the game or raise the bar, so one compares oneself with peers, and in banking there's always someone with more money, and once you've bought your first house there's always someone with a better house, so you've got to move up that ladder and so on. So there's never a point where you reach satisfaction.
Tom finally reached breaking point, so he resigned, moved away from the city and started a new life as a gardener. He now earns a lot less, but it's a job that rates as one of the happiest professions of all.
It's night and day, absolutely immeasurable gulf of difference between how miserable I was then and how, relatively speaking, happy I am. And I spend my days doing something that I'm passionate about, that I adore, that I love.
Is the moral of your story, the lesson to be learned, that if something is making you really unhappy, like your job, you should just part company with it?
Yes, I think I don't have a single moment of regret about having lost the big house and the nice car and the 5-star holidays, because what's replaced it is so much more fulfilling. So if you have a passion, if you have something that you really want to do, my advice based on my experience would be stop talking about it and do it.
So if money really can't buy you happiness, then what does? Well, one thing's clear-cut. The social support of friends and family has a huge impact. It's Thursday night and Chris Alley is on his way out for a drink, but he's not meeting friends down the pub. He volunteers for Cocktails in Care Homes, which is a charity bringing parties to residential homes for the elderly, complete with martinis and margaritas.
We come into the care homes and we play some music, we have a few drinks with the residents. It's quite high energy, we just have a really good time with them.
Statistics recently named the UK as the loneliness capital of Europe, and indeed for many residents here, tonight's party is the highlight of their social calendar.
The residents sort of get excited and look forward to the parties maybe weeks in advance. You know, life in care homes can be really lonely, particularly if you don't have any visits or any family, you know, nearby. And I think these cocktail parties offer friendship to older people that otherwise would never get that sort of intimacy.
In a recent survey of over 65s, nearly half said a TV or pet was their main source of company. The effect of such loneliness can be huge. Studies have found that social isolation makes you nearly twice as likely to die prematurely, so evenings like this can make a big difference.
I get a bit lonely at times. I don't go much places like, but when I come here it's very good. Because I'm out and about and meeting different people, and I always seem to make another friend when I come here.
But it's not just the residents seeing the benefit, because research shows that doing good for others makes you happier too.
So it definitely makes me look at the bigger picture, and it's not necessarily just about them and me giving to them. In return, I get a better peace of mind, so I get to be proud of what I'm doing. I definitely get as much out of this than I think the residents get out of it as well.
So will our group find helping others just as rewarding? To find out, we took them out of our happiness lab.
Right, good morning to you all. This involves volunteering, doing stuff for others, and Solomon here is going to explain.
Thank you guys very much for coming down. You are now at the soup kitchen, so we do a lot of work with the homeless. We've got a lot for you lot to do today, so it's going to be helping out with preparing with food, sorting out some of the clothes we've got going on at the back there, and also just engaging with the people. So thank you guys very much for coming down.
And we're getting started, yeah?
Yes, yes.
Good.
They get straight to work. This place offers assistance not only to the homeless, but anyone in the community needing help to get back on their feet. Scientists have found that helping other people consistently rates as one of the most effective ways to boost your own well-being. So, to try and get a better understanding of why that is, some of our volunteers wore portable scanners which monitor the area of the brain involved in emotion.
So, Trey, these are the findings, yeah?
Yes.
And what have you found? What's the most striking thing?
What's interesting, actually, is we found that it was less about the task itself, more upon the sense of gratification and the completion, i.e. when Kerry was sorting the clothes, it was a very relaxing process. However, you find the true pleasure, the real kind of electrodermal, the true emotional response when somebody comes in and acknowledges what we have done and gives us that praise that really gives us that intrinsic value that we're looking for, where I guess is very tightly linked to happiness and joy itself.
So what you're saying is that approbation and acknowledgement from other people is really key in making us happy.
Absolutely.
So companionship and helping others makes you happier, whilst money may not. But why is that? Well, the answer lies within the inner workings of our brains. Neuroscientist Morten Krinkelbach has spent his life studying the science of pleasure. Here at Oxford University, he's investigating how the brain reacts to things that we enjoy compared to the things that we don't.
Where do I put that?
In your nose, please. Okay, Johnny, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling reasonably happy because I had a nice lunch.
Through these tubes, I'm smelling some pleasant
lavender
and not so pleasant smells.
Oh, that's pungent. That's not nice.
The brain responds very differently to both.
So does this mean that you can actually see the effect of emotional changes in the brain?
Yes, that is exactly what it means. It means that we can see what kind of brain regions are talking to each other. There is a difference between nice and nasty things in your brain. And this is what happens when you had a nice smell.
Yeah.
And that part is different from the one that was active when you had the negative smell.
Morten believes that if we can understand how the brain processes pleasure, then we'll have a better idea of how to become happier.
And are pleasure and happiness linked?
They're certainly linked. They're not the same thing. Happiness is like a state and pleasure is like small moments in that state. Clearly the same kind of region must be involved. But then again, happiness is something more. Happiness is not just pleasure, but is also meaning. And meaning, of course, is something that we find foremost in other people.
What are the practical applications of this kind of thing?
Well, I think one of the very practical things is that if we can understand where pleasure is in the brain, we can understand what happens when there's no pleasure. And we can start to think about how it is that we could change the brain, so how we could rebalance the brain so that there would be more pleasure and therefore, hopefully, more happiness.
It all makes the government's questionnaire seem rather low-tech. Social psychologist Paul Dolan helped devise the 4 questions they're using, and he says the approach may seem traditional, but it could completely change the future of political decision-making.
As we get more and better data, we can be using this information to decide whether we should be spending more money on health, on education, on transport, by looking at the impact of those interventions within those areas on people's happiness. I think in a decade or two, we're going to be appraising nearly all uses of public monies in terms of their impact on people's thoughts and feelings about life, because that's the final consequence. That's what we care about.
That's certainly true, because our quest for happiness has contributed to the self-help business becoming a multi-million-pound industry. But whether government should be getting involved is an idea that divides opinion.
I think the collection of happiness data by the government and the use of that data to plan policy is worse than a waste of money. The idea that the government can somehow aggregate the information about happiness into one single measure and then pull policy levers in order to raise the aggregate happiness of the nation is just a conceit.
There's research to attest to the fact that happier people are more productive, happier people are more physically healthy, happier people are more emotionally healthy, that it has a knock-on effect in their relationships around the home. So there's a lot of reasons that a government would want its population to actually be happy.
So could a happier population transform us into a more successful Britain? Back in our lab, we're testing what difference it really makes. The volunteers are asked to fill in a questionnaire similar to the one used by the government. Then, one by one, each is given the same task.
A simple challenge for you. Yep. This is a bucket of iced water. I'd like you to put your hand into the water and keep it in there for as long as you can bear, and when you can't take it anymore, take your hand out.
Well, all right then. Okay.
Cool. Does it matter which hand it is? Just simple as that?
Yeah.
Studies have found that happier people are more resilient and better able to cope with hardship. And interestingly, the 4 people who've given themselves the lowest well-being scores managed to last just an average of 1 minute 31 seconds.
I can't do it, sorry.
But the 4 with higher well-being ratings are able to cope better, lasting an average of 2 minutes 45 seconds. Next, we look at how mood affects creativity. The group are randomly split in half. 4 watch some news footage. The others have the more enjoyable experience of watching stand-up comedy. Then both groups are given the same challenge.
This is a paperclip. The question I'd like to ask you is how many different potential uses can we think of for this paperclip?
The group that watched the news footage did well and came up with 26 different ideas.
Earring.
But the group that had been put in a happier mood did significantly better.
You could use it as a money clip.
With a total of 48 suggestions.
An alternative wedding ring?
I think many people think of happiness as a sort of soft, fluffy, nice to have. You know, if you can feel good, that's nice, but it's not essential. But actually what we're finding is it really has so many knock-on effects that matter so much.
It's a theory that organisations are already putting to the test on a smaller scale. At this coffee shop chain, they believe happy staff mean happier customers. And once they've shut up shop, the staff will be staying on for a spot of happiness training.
We're going to talk about how happiness works and happiness at work and why it's actually a really serious business.
It's a chance for the team to discuss their approach to problems in and outside work and how they could become a more contented workforce.
Thinking about your work-life balance, just take 2 minutes to just any idea you think could improve that situation, OK?
It might look like a bit of fun, but there's a serious message here, and one that could bring extra profits for the company.
So unhappy employees, they go sick more, they leave you, they won't be as productive as happy employees. And we've done an estimate that, you know, for the average UK company, which is 250 people, that having happy employees can save you £500,000 a year, every year.
But this kind of training isn't only being used by businesses. Psychologists say the behaviours we learn in childhood will stay with us through life. So at this Hertfordshire school, students are being given resilience lessons.
And there's a new word that we're going to be focusing on today. It's called catastrophising, where everything is the absolute end of the world. And that is not a happy place to be.
Today, the class is learning how to approach life's problems without automatically assuming the worst.
Whenever, like, my mum calls me and my sister down, I think she's going to tell us off or something. I don't think it might be something good.
This training's being taught in more than 200 schools across the UK, and it's now part of a long-term study to see if it improves exam scores. Lucy Bailey brought the scheme over from America and says the students there saw real academic improvements.
Well, of course, school's main purpose is to teach maths, English, science, those subjects. But if students are going to feel good and they're going to function well in their lessons, then that's going to have an impact on their academic attainment.
But of course, the most important judges are the kids themselves.
These classes have helped me stop having more arguments and friendship problems with my friends, because we deal with them by ourselves.
Friends abandon you and make fun.
Usually I'd be scared to go up and talk to people and make friends with them and get to know them, but I think I've gained courage from these lessons.
Well, resilience definitely makes you feel much happier, and it gives you a kind of feeling that you could ignore anything mean that anyone says and make yourself really happy.
Of course, we can't all go on training courses. So is it possible to become happier simply with a change of mindset? Perhaps the most qualified person to answer that is Mathieu Ricard. A former French scientist turned Buddhist monk, he's often called the world's happiest man. It may sound an unlikely title, but it's one grounded in science. When experts monitored his brain activity, they found he had a never-seen-before capacity for joy.
So clearly, we have different dispositions for happiness. Some people are very cheerful, some always ruminate, a lot of hope and fear. But that's our baseline, that's our starting point. But what we should know is wherever we start from, there's a huge potential for transformation. That's the main thing. We're not going to be all Olympic champions, neither of running nor happiness, but there's a huge margin of change. And that's where we vastly underestimate the power of transformation of mind.
But how possible is this, really? To find out, our happiness experts set our group of volunteers a week-long challenge.
So these are not sort of strict commandments, but in general these are things that research has shown really help people.
Each night they're asked to make a note of 3 things that have gone well that day, as well as spending a bit more time helping others.
With my applications.
And each day they either have to try 10 minutes of meditation or a little more exercise.
Yes, I've been enjoying the meditation. I've done it almost every single day.
We asked them to keep video diaries just to see how they're getting on.
I had a very good day, business-wise.
Gives me a chance to do a bit of thinking, get my head around things.
I swam in the sea, and at first it felt a bit cold, and then I got in there and it was really nice, actually.
So, did our week-long happiness challenge make a difference to the group's well-being? We asked them to complete the same questionnaire as they had on day 1. Back then, the group's average mark out of 10 for happiness was 6.8. But today, their average score has gone up to 8.3. So this last week really does seem to have boosted their happiness levels. But will they keep it up?
What have you learned from this week that you're going to kind of take on board?
Well, after coming here today and seeing some of the people here, not to take life for granted.
Meditating has been a real big thing for me, and I've known about it before, but I've never really committed to it. So I've done that a lot this week, and it's really helped.
I found the homework task kind of helpful in the sector where we retracing our day back and think of things that literally made us happy.
You've got to add up all the good things so that they cancel out the bad things, and then don't do things that make you unhappy.
So you can think yourself happy or happier.
I think you can, I'm not going to say engineer happiness necessarily, but I think you can take positive steps. You can take some of the exercises that we've done, the mindful awareness, if you like. Yeah, I think you can.
The mind is an amazing thing, it really is. And there's so much that we don't understand. But we can influence our mood through our thoughts, absolutely, definitely.
The government may think they can make us happier through policy, but this experiment suggests we all have the power to do that for ourselves. And it's certainly a theory that seems to have worked for the world's happiest man.
Well, there's no secret of happiness with a big H. The key is altruism and compassion, benevolence. I think there's no such thing as a successful, selfish happiness. Me all day long makes you feel miserable, you make everyone miserable around you. It's a lose-lose situation. Because I think that's the best way to accomplish the twofold goal of your happiness and that of others.
If you'd like some more information on tonight's programme or to see a few extra tips on how to boost your own happiness, please visit our website at itv.com/tonight. Until next time, though, good evening and thanks for watching.
Coming up next week, trouble with numbers. Tonight goes back to school to find out why half the UK's adult population has the maths ability of a primary school child.